there is so much on the line for Celtic tonight. It's worth a fortune. Just kick us off with that. How are Celtic going to approach this?
The money, I don't think the money's even... it obviously helps. It's more about the prestige for Celtic. I think it's getting to that. Celtic think they're a Champions League club, don't they? Mm-hmm. So they should be in the Champions League, and they have to get by this tie. It's I think it's torturous. I think this is it's tough a tie they could have got this stage. I think LASK are a dangerous team. If this was Sturm Graz or it was RB Salzburg, people would be quite jittery. I think they've been a bit underrated. LASK, I mean, they're not a particularly glamorous team. They won the league. A wee bit surprised how they won the league last year. The first time in about 60 years.
61, yeah.
But they're a big, strong team, and they've clearly got a bit about them. They haven't lost many players from last year. I think one or two. But usually when the team like LASK win a league, they get plundered. Not really happened. They've kept a lot of their good players. A real tough test for Celtic. But they have to get through this tie. There's no ifs, buts, and maybe about it. If they don't get through this tie, there'll be questions asked, because this is where Celtic believe they should be.
Yeah, the thing is, we're only 3 games into the season, but I mean, already this is probably the biggest game of the season in terms of financial anyway, because I know obviously Celtic get plenty of money in the bank, and earning another £40 million might not be the top priority of fans, but you know, when it comes to attracting, like Mick says, the sheer prestige of being in the Champions League, when it comes to attracting a certain calibre of player, you know, Celtic have still got business to do after this Champions League qualifier, so that will certainly help them as well. And I think Celtic just really need to be there. You know, this season marks the 60th anniversary of the Lisbon Lions conquering Europe, and you know, I think Celtic, that should be an added onus for Celtic to qualify and do themselves proud. And like Mick says, you know, LASK, I think they're a very dangerous opponent. They've been free scoring at the start of this season. They play 3-5-2. They're very much a physical side as well. And I don't quite think that they are going to be coming here and, you know, it'll be backs against the wall and they'll settle for a draw. I think they're coming here I really don't think they've got anything to lose. They've never actually qualified for the Champions League before, so I don't think they'll be adjusting their system too much, because obviously it served them well last season where they won a double for the first time, as Mick says, in over 60 years. So I think this is a real dangerous tie for Celtic, and Martin O'Neill, I think the difference from last year's, I'm sure you'll touch upon with the Kyrie Almaty disaster, is they're kind of threadbare in certain areas like midfield and right back with Alistair Johnston injured, but I think the difference is they've got real quality and difference makers up front, Casper Hu and Camilo Duran. So Martin O'Neill and the Celtic fans will be hoping that those two guys in particular can make the difference.
All right, listen, the big question all summer is, and this tie's been hanging over Celtic for months and months, and the big question is, will Celtic be ready for the Champions League playoff? And the question can't be answered until tonight. Mm-hmm. We'll find out if they're going to be ready. I have some doubts. I think they could have been better prepared for this tie than they have been. I think Ryan's right. I think the ones that they brought in, I think Duran and Hu have been looking really promising. I think they're done with Bauer and Hassan been in the door 2 or 3 weeks ago. They're not, which means they're not quite up to speed, which means that's a big ask, especially for Bauer, who might have to come in tonight. I think that starting 11 anyway, even with those two not quite up to it yet, I think should be good enough. But the problem is, if things start to go a wee bit wrong, if there's a wee hamstring injury there, or a wee sore knee there, all of a sudden you start picking away at that squad, Celtic are going to have problems. And by the way, these 180 minutes could be fraught. So I would expect some problems. Somebody limping off here, or somebody pulling up, or somebody getting tired. And that's when we're going to start to find out how much Celtic are ready. And they better be. They really better be. Because they've had long enough to prepare for it.
I mean, the thing is, you talk about Celtic being ready. They're an injury away to Bill Sinisalo from Ross Doohan stepping in goals, and an injury away from Kieran Tierney, and Liam Scales been shifted at left back again. So, you know, as I say, they're really light in certain areas, right back as well. I think that's just unfortunate with Alistair Johnston. That's just luck playing against you. He's obviously going to be a big miss. I mean, Arnie Ingles has obviously left as well, and they've not properly replaced him. I think Martin O'Neill was very cute with his words yesterday, Mike, wasn't he? But you can tell that I think he's a bit agitated the fact that they've not managed to get a replacement in for Arnie, because let's be honest, this is what the press boys were talking about yesterday. In the case of Ingles, everybody knew he was on his way out
for months.
Probably since last summer. You probably thought he's going to get another year out of him, and then they'll sell him on for big bucks. That's what's inevitably happened. And you knew certainly from January there would obviously been a gentleman agreement between Martin O'Neill and the player. Look, stick with us to the end of the season. We'll let you go when a big money bid comes in. That arrived. The player wanted to go to West Ham. Celtic should have had, like they did with Dyson Maeda leaving. As soon as Dyson Maeda left, they had Casper Hu ready and to be paraded. That should have been the case with Arnie Ingles leaving and a like-for-like replacement in the door for this Champions League qualifier. It's not happened, so yeah, I think the starting 11 is still pretty strong, but like Mick says, my concern is the options off the bench at the minute, and with Mika Bauer and especially Hassan, I don't think he's going to be able to make an impact. Famous last words, but he looked really rusty coming off the bench. He's not had much pre-season at all, so you really ideally want those guys in the door earlier. But look, I think on paper, certainly with the starting 11, Celtic are in decent shape going into this.
I would argue that the Engels replacement should be in the door before Engels actually left.
Yeah.
I mean, Martin O'Neill was talking about in pre-season. We were out in Portugal, and he was talking about as if that he was expecting him to go. I mean, I think the way he spoke about Maeda, Engels, and Hatate was almost in the past tense. So I think they knew he was likely to go. They also knew that after a good World Cup, that Arsenal was going to get interested as well. I mean, as it turned out, he's got injured. So I would argue they should have had replacements for these guys lined up to come in even before the guys go. I know that's a bit of a gamble because things can change. We saw it with Sharmiti at Rangers, we saw it with Johnson myself, and you could be stuck with a £10 million midfield player and Anthony Engels still on the books. But I think Celtic are playing with fire a wee bit when it comes to these qualifiers by not doing that. It's almost like I almost think Celtic act as though these playoffs have jumped out the bushes. Like it's been hiding there for months. It's been in the books for a long time. Likewise, when players leaving, I mean, Martin sitting on Friday talking about, we'll now need to go and get a replacement for Engels. And you're thinking, this is not just to come out of nowhere. But when we talked about it in January, certainly the start of the summer. So I just think Celtic, I know it's hard to get quality in early, but this game is so big. This is a cup final for Celtic. They can't muck about with it. And I just think they have, again, gambled a wee bit. And it's brought more jeopardy into the tie than need be. Having said that, I still think they should have enough to beat LASK. And we saw Sturm Graz here last year. They were all right. But Celtic, at a time they weren't playing particularly great, I thought they dealt with them fairly straightforwardly. I don't think it's going to be that kind of game. Obviously, that's a Europa League tie, so it's different. There's no the same jeopardy. This is a cup tie where it's all or nothing over two legs. So that creates a different environment as well. But if they're a similar kind of level or slightly above that, I mean, Celtic should be enough to deal with them. But it's a two-legged tie with all at stake, so anything could happen. So it's in the balance, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, looking at LASK, their transfer record is under 2.5 million. Looking at that, you rarely get to say this with Celtic, with the Scottish sides, that we are outspending the European competition. But looking at that, you've got the kind of goals of the last year's campaign with Kairat Almaty. How do kind of Celtic overcome that? And with that kind of knowledge that the squad isn't quite there yet.
But Angus, you can go back. Listen, not just Kairat. I mean, look. So last Kairat, you can go back to Malmo, Maribor, Cluj, Athens, maybe something similar. Ferencvaros. These teams all had Midtjylland. These teams all had budgets less than Celtic, and they came a cropper, and that's why Celtic fans are haunted by these ties. I mean, they really are.
PTSD.
You walk on the street and you can see them coming in. They're like, this is terrifying for Celtic fans because listen, they've been bumped out, and in the last 9 times they've been asked to qualify, they've been bumped out 7 times. They've only managed it twice under Brendan Rodgers 10 years ago. So there's a reason why these ties are fraught with danger. And Celtic have came a cropper on too many of them. I don't think if they come a cropper again, they'll be serious questions asked. But like I say, I think they've got enough, but it's going to be tense.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's, like Mick says, it's actually the last 5 Champions League qualifying campaigns they've failed to negotiate the final hurdle. So obviously it's a daunting prospect for Celtic, and that just like you say, it just adds even more intrigue into this tie and whether they'll be able to finally break that hoodoo. But it's a pretty appalling qualifying record. But I think Celtic, especially you look at last year, as I say, I just compare the two squads, and I do think that, I know fans will be agitated that more business hasn't been done, but I do think they are in a better place than they were this time last year. You look at the forward options they had last year. They had a one-away Dies and Maeda up front who missed a sitter in each game when he's played through in 1-on-1. His mind wasn't quite there. They had a Swansea City-bound Adam Ida, who again, his head was on the earning more money down at Swansea City. And then you had Shin Yamada, who Brendan Rodgers just quite simply didn't fancy. And he was out the door in January, he's out the door on loan again this year. So you compare that to the forward options they've got just now. 2 Champions League proven strikers in Casper Hu who scored 6 last year, and Camilo Duran, who scored 5 in the competition. So I think, as I say, I keep going back to it, but I think that is the real difference. And look, another, maybe it's just a kind of hypothetical question, but if you were to give me the option of retaining, and by the way, I was one of Arnie Engels' biggest fans. I thought he was real quality, especially on his day. You saw it come on his final appearance, what he is capable of. Maybe didn't do it consistently enough in a Celtic jersey, but I think he was a completely different profile to what they have in there. But if you're looking at game changers, which is the key difference here in such definitive ties, I think that if you were to give me the option of keeping Arnie Engels or Benjamin Nygren, who started the season on fire, I would much rather have Benjamin Nygren on the side just now. He's got 6 goal contributions in 3 games. I know there was talk of a big money exit. It could potentially still be a big money exit in the cards, especially if Celtic lose this Champions League qualifier. But I think, again, the link-up play, as I mentioned it in last night's Hotline Live, Angus, I think that the arrival of Casper Hoo has not only reinvigorated the team, but I think he's lifted the entire club, and you can see already the connection that Casper Hoo's building with Benjamin Nygren, and I think Hoo is getting the best out of Nygren in that advanced role, because he is a recognised penalty box striker, and Nygren has been always so prolific and creative. So again, I think I think he can make a difference tonight as well. And it's just a case of who comes in. I think if I fancy Mika Bauer to start. I don't think he'll complete the full 90 minutes. He'll probably get Luke McCown, who'll probably come off the bench tonight. Rio Hatate, there's been question marks over him. I'm not convinced he's got much left to give Celtic, in all honesty. He hasn't really produced much in the last 2 years, so I went behind my hat on him. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
He had a few good displays in Europe last year. I'm saying that Rio Hatate.
He had a purple patch.
I think I take the point. He looks a goner, but
He had a purple patch.
I'm looking back to Sturm Graz game, Feyenoord away. But actually, Bologna away, he had a stormer for half an hour. I think he still set off a moment of madness. So he has got it in him. But I think you're right. He's so far out in the box.
I think mentally he's not all in.
Martin, I think it's almost kind of dismissed him a wee bit. I was surprised to see him tonight, but they could do with him. They could really do with him.